Hey everyone, I'm Anna Luisa Daigneault from Living Tongues Institute for Endangered Languages. Thank you so much for coming to this meeting today. We'll be talking about living dictionaries, and I'll be recording the first portion of the presentation. Then I'll stop recording after about 30 minutes or so, and we'll have a community discussion about your specific projects and questions. Okay. Go. Okay, so we're talking about Living Dictionaries, a global platform for language documentation and collaboration. And I'm here on the line today with Dr. Greg Anderson, who is the president and founder of Living Tongues. So he can also help answer your questions later too. So the premise guiding the work that we do is that it's a moral imperative of the 21st century to decolonize and democratize linguistic resources. So what do we mean by that? We mean we want to bring language data online and make it accessible to as many people as possible. There has been a lot of documentation done of many of the world's languages, but a lot of that work is stuck in archives or inaccessible to communities. So the work that we're doing is really to bring language data online, get it accessible to people, and help them also document their own languages. As you know, there's over 3,000 languages that are at risk of disappearing in the coming decades. So we are fueled by this sense of urgency to do this work and to really empower communities to document their languages, get them online, and share them in their own revitalization programs. So our platform, Living Dictionaries, is available on desktop, on mobile, on any device. So you can build a new dictionary just with your own smartphone, or you can build it on your desktop computer in any browser. It really works straight in the browser, so you don't have to download anything. It's a progressive web app. So as I said, it functions in any browser. It functions as a website itself. It looks and feels like an app. So mainly it's a web app. Right now it functions best. All the multimedia components function the best on the web. We are working on offline mode. We have a couple of the capabilities such as editing text and browsing are available offline. And it's something that we really care about and that we're working actively on to serve communities who don't have stable connectivity to the internet all the time. So we're very, very conscious of those communities because we work in those communities as well. And so we're doing our best to make the tool available offline as well. It's programmed using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React.js with Svelte integration, and we use Google Firebase on the back end as a cloud-hosted database for the data. The code is source available on our GitHub, so if anyone wants the link to our GitHub repository, I can also send that to you. So how do we work? We work just like this in a grassroots way by doing Zoom webinars for citizen linguists, just like yourselves. So throughout the pandemic, we've actually really seen our engagement take off. We've had a lot of meetings like this, one every month, where we welcome people that we've never met before to train them about the platform and to hear their questions and to get their suggestions. And we really see our work at the intersection of linguistics and community activism. So we have one foot in the scientific world and one foot in the grassroots activism world. And we want to make a tool that really serves a lot of communities around the world. So we'll dive into some of the specifics of living dictionaries and some of the things that we can accommodate and that we can't, and some of the things that we're constantly trying to improve. So through these different little sections that I'm going to introduce, please jot down your questions that might be specific to your own languages, and we'll do our best to address them at the end. We've really done our best to make a multilingual platform and to accommodate many scripts and glosses. So I'll show you a few examples of dictionaries that are very multilingual in nature. Okay, so here is a snapshot from the Beer Horror Living Dictionary, which we are actively working on. So this is what we call, just diving in here, the head word of a dictionary. So here you see it transcribed in International Phonetic Alphabet, known as IPA. This is actually something we're going to change in the future. We're going to have the headwords of this dictionary in Devanagari script, because the local people who are starting to develop educational systems in this language, they will be using the Devanagari script in India. So we are able to, through having multiple orthographies on the platform, we can represent the same phrase in IPA here, phonetic alphabet, also, and in local scripts too. So we can accommodate up to 5 local orthographies if there are different ways of writing down the same language. So that's what you see here. The head word, the same content in Devanagari, and then in another writing system, which is what the Oriya language usually uses. So that's the same content, but written out in Oriya script. We have the phonetic transcription again. And then we have what are called glosses. Glosses are translations into different regionally relevant languages. So in the region where the Birhor community lives, they need Oriya, like translation into Oriya, Hindi, and then we added English for our own purposes as well, and to also increase the prestige of this tool, of this dictionary. So that's why we have glosses in Oriya and Hindi and English. You also see the part of speech, the semantic domain tag, and some notes about the morphology and interlineation, which are useful for linguists. So this is a very extensive entry for the term sit in water for a long time. A lot of the entries in our living dictionaries are not necessarily this extensive or complex, but it's just to show you how we can accommodate a lot of orthographies and scripts in one entry. This is also another language from India, the Sora language, which is another endangered, another Munda language from the same Munda language family as Birhor. And in this part of India where this language is spoken, they have other scripts that they use to represent this language. So they actually have multiple different competing orthographies for this language. So we show them all. We don't just necessarily make the decision to prioritize certain orthographies. We try to create visibility for all of them so that we can assist as many people as possible, and so that people can search in these different scripts when they're searching the dictionary. So you have Assamese, you have Sompeng Mardir, which is a locally developed orthography. You have the phonetic, and then you have glosses in 4 different languages. For this one, you have Oriya, Assamese, English, and Hindi. And once again, we can accommodate up to 5 glossing languages for each project. So that really helps in areas of the world that are super multilingual and that need to have multiple languages in a dictionary. And that's particularly for really multilingual places like India, but also for diaspora languages where people from many different languages might be trying to learn this one diaspora language. So yeah, happy to take your questions on that topic too in our discussion. Next, I'm going to talk very briefly about ecological and cultural knowledge. It's very important. Our living dictionaries are kind of a portal, they're kind of a doorway to learning more about the environments that surround the speakers of these languages, and also to understand the deeply held cultural knowledge, traditions, and other practices from the cultures who speak these languages. So we really try to elevate that in the living dictionaries. Here's an example from Gata, another Munda language of India. And so this dictionary, which we developed over many years, has a lot of ecological knowledge, such as bird knowledge. So knowledge about all the species of birds. So all those entries that are about birds, we tag them with this birds tag that you see here under semantic domains. And so when you click on that filter, it gives you a really nice list of all the bird words in this dictionary. And then if you look at it in gallery view, all of a sudden you're getting a really wonderful list of the many, many birds and images. So this is done by collecting and organizing the multimedia that needs to go with each entry. So not just the words and their translations, but also the pronunciation and also the images that go with each bird. So this is the product of many years of work. and revisions and corrections and teamwork. But just to show you that this is something really great that can be done to organize information and data from different species, and then be able to sort them and search them really effectively. Here's another snapshot from Gata. Here we have the search filter for plants, trees, and other vegetation. So once again, this dictionary is a really beautiful repository of plant knowledge. You have so many different terms for the local plant species, and then their translations and some of their scientific names are included too. And in the entries, you can also include information about how the plants are used, and if they're poisonous, or if they're edible, or if they're used for medicinal or economic purposes, and other uses like fuel or whatnot. So it becomes, like I said, like this portal for getting into not just the language, but the landscape itself. Here is another just an entry view of one word for weaver in the Pocumchi language. So this is the Pocumchi Tuscark, means talking dictionary for Pocumchi. That was the original name of this dictionary. Pocumchi is one of the Mayan languages spoken in Guatemala. Oops, sorry. And so this is a dictionary where we still have to encourage the community to add more multimedia and possibly videos, but you could see how an entry like this, that is the word for weaver in this language, this could have many interesting multimedia components to add, for example. So that's just to give you inspiration for when you create your own dictionaries. You could have a video link, you could have an image of a weaver, you could do a lot with just one entry. So let's talk a little bit about multimedia. So one of our main goals with this Living Dictionaries platform is to kind of go beyond the static page of just a printed dictionary where you kind of view it in a linear way, and that you're kind of stuck onto the page. We wanted to use the availability of electronic resources to really beef up these dictionaries. So that's why we have a lot of different multimedia, and we're actively working on it to create even more spaces for multimedia, such as video, which is coming out soon. So right now we have audio recording capabilities. So this is from Gutob, another Munda language of India. And all of the audio recordings are in the dictionary. So you can see here's an audio waveform. And when people, in this case, we just individually, we recorded the audio separately in the communities, edited them up, and then uploaded them all to the Living Dictionary. But you can also record them straight in the app by using the recording feature. And then that allows you to use the microphone straight in the app. And so you don't have to have separate audio files and then upload them. You could record them yourself if you're a fluent speaker. We also have room for images, as you saw before, and we'll soon have a video recording component, which will be located right under this tab here, so that people could record themselves saying the word or phrase directly in the platform. Okay, now I'm going to speak briefly about semantic domains. So semantic domains are a very vast topic. And we could talk about semantic domains all day. And so I'll try to just give you a very short overview. We've really seen the need for having tags for these core groups of meanings on the platform so that people can organize their data and filter through it and kind of get a sense of the different words and phrases that are parts of these different semantic domains. And we're actively trying to improve our semantic domain list, and we take community feedback to improve it. So we do add domains when some of them are lacking. So some of them that we have, for example, we have locations and directions is one of the many semantic domains that we have. So this is a screenshot from the Kalinago Living Dictionary, where we have a really wonderful array of place names and locations and directions. So for all of these entries, I tagged them with both location and directions and place names. And for some of them, we have images of the different islands. So in working with the Kalinago descendants who built this living dictionary, they really took the time to try to collect some of the original place names of the islands themselves in the Caribbean, where this language was once spoken. So they're trying to revive the knowledge of the environment, and their ancestral knowledge about some of these words is really interesting. So the original word for Barbuda was land of the herons, or land of the large birds. Or the original name for this island was Island of the Clouds. So in reviving and collecting and making some of these place names known, it gives you, it shifts your perspective on how we use maps and how we name the world around us. So that's something that we're actively trying to improve for the future. And we really want to encourage people to document different place names that might not be on your standard maps, but you want to find a way to preserve that information. Okay, so dialects. This is one of the questions that we get a lot. People ask us, okay, so there's so many different dialects. So what do we do for dictionaries? Do we create a dictionary for each dialect? Or should we have multiple dialects inside one dictionary? And the answer is yes and yes. You can do either way. You can have a dictionary just for one specific dialect and name that dictionary as such and explain it in the about section saying, hey, this dictionary is just for this dialect. Or you can also have multiple dialects inside one dictionary, no problem. So I'll show you a couple of examples. This is a language from Nigeria. It's called Owe. And this was created by Dr. Bolanle Arakoyo, who's a fluent speaker of Owe. And she's a linguist, and she also documents other endangered languages in Nigeria. And so here, it's her native tongue is a dialect of Yoruba. So the whole dictionary that she's building is just Owe, just this one dialect. And so that's very useful. This tool has become useful for herself and her own community, but also for this large diaspora of Owe speakers who are spread out around the world and who want a place to be able to just find Owe words and look them up. And so, you know, there's Owe forums on Facebook and on WhatsApp. And so there's other people who need access to this kind of information, especially if they want to teach their children. So that's one example where you have one dialect and one sole dictionary. We have another example here from the Opata language, which is a almost extinct Uto-Aztecan language from Mexico and the US. There is also an active community of Opata descendants, both in Mexico and the US, who are trying to revive Opata. And they're creating these systematic resources for Opata. And in doing that, they know there are various dialects of Opata, but they want them all in one dictionary, because otherwise it will be too complicated to try to get these disparate resources in these different dictionaries. So they made their own executive decision to have several different dialects represented in one Opata living dictionary. So you can see this one is tagged with this dialect, Tigima, and this other entry is tagged with the dialect Tonichi. So in that way, we can just make it known when there's an entry that's from a specific dialect. And then people can also search for the different dialects. And it helps them in an educational way. It can help them maybe trace words that were from specific villages or regions, since Opata used to be spoken over a large area. So those are just a very quick bird's eye view about dialects. Now I'm going to talk briefly about interface languages. So what I mean by the interface languages is how the platform itself works. So we have been showing it so far in English, but since we're very multilingually minded, we've made the platform available in many, many different languages. This is important because activists and citizen linguists around the world who are using this platform. They're not just coming from an English background, they're coming from Spanish, French, Kiswahili, Russian, Hebrew, Portuguese, Bahasa Indonesia, Malay, Bengali, and others. So these ones here are the ones that are deployed onto the platform, so you can use the whole site in these languages. And these are some of the others that we're actively developing, and we've got volunteer translators working on translating these different languages. So we usually roll out 2 or 3 languages in a year so that more people can use the platform. And we feel this is super, super important, and that people shouldn't just bend to the English. They should have a whole platform that works for them in their own language. Here's an example of how the interface looks in Russian. So we support the documentation of various endangered languages in Siberia. And there are very few speakers left of a lot of these languages. So any descendants or people interested in these languages would be coming from a Russian point of view. So they want to be able to work on the platform, but also just browse the platform in Russian. So here you can see here all the entries are in this language, which is called Hizel, that Greg worked on with Mikhail Tabatkin and Denis Tokmashev. So you can see that this is all of a sudden really useful for people in Russia. And it allows them to, they can also not just use the interface, but also they can search in Russian for these terms and then get the Hizel translations. And if they had English proficiency, they can also search for the terms in English. Okay, now a few quick words on displays. So we wanted to make sure people can get at the data, not just through a traditional alphabetical list view, but also through table view and gallery view. So here is our more traditional list view. This is one of my favorite projects on the platform, Quechua del Sur de Bolivia de Vacas, which is being built by Noemi Condori Arias and Gabriel Gallinate and other people. Excuse me. So here you can see they've got entries, they've got some semantic domain tags over here, and they have some images accompanying their entries. And the data is presented alphabetically, but you can just search in this top toolbar here, and you can get different search yields. Next, I'll show you what another dictionary, what it looks like in table view. So this is switching over to the spreadsheet type view of the dictionary. And it's a good way to explore a dictionary fast, to see a lot of different data. And ultimately, the table view is actually very useful for editors, dictionary managers who are logged in and working on their dictionaries. They find editing in table view is a lot faster. And finally, we have the gallery view, which allows you to see the entries that have images. So it just pulls the images. And it's a really great way if you're just visually exploring a certain semantic domain, or in this case, we're searching the morpheme pog in Gita, and pog means bug. So all of these entries you can see, they have this suffix pog on them. And so when you just search for pog here, you get everything that's been, it tends to be butterflies in this language, but they all have this suffix pog. And so they show up in gallery view. Okay, last few notes here, since I'm already, I'm running out of steam because I've just been talking for 30 minutes. I'm going to talk briefly on batch imports and remote collaborations. So a lot of people coming to our webinars have been really interested in getting their living dictionaries off the ground, and they already have data in like a Word document or a spreadsheet or something else. And so they're eager to build a dictionary, but they don't want to do entries individually. They want to be able to upload a lot. So we can accommodate that. It just, it takes time and occasionally 1 or 2 meetings to get that done. So we work with people through small regional meetings like this. For example, here we had a meeting just with linguists in Africa, and we worked through various projects. We helped set up spreadsheets. And so by doing these locally identified regionally specific meetings, we're able to help people make progress on their living dictionaries. So this is an example of how we work. And so for some of the people on this call, they were building the Kalanga Living Dictionary. So Kalanga is a language from Zimbabwe. And so after we did some initial training with them, then we built them a spreadsheet template where they could easily put in all their words and phrases in Kalanga, and then they could add their English glosses and parts of speech and other things that are important for the dictionary, like semantic domain tags and other stuff. And so they worked on this for several months, and then they were finished with a large batch. And then they contacted us again and they said, okay, we're ready for import. And so then we were able to import it to the dictionary. And so this process here, you know, we're happy to accommodate any of you on the call who want to do batch imports. It still goes through a process of curation. So it's not totally automatic. We have to help you get set up, customized for your project. Right now, we have actually 5 dictionaries waiting for import. So we're slowly building out this kind of timeline of imports as more and more people use the platform. And so we're really happy with the progress that we're making and working with this way to batch import. It just takes time because we want to make sure that people are getting the right, putting in the right information if they're doing a batch import. But people are welcome to build their dictionaries without our support. They would just go onto the platform and do individual entries at their own pace. So that is also something that we encourage a lot. Some of the languages that we're currently that we're working on or about to launch or just launched. So Kalanga, like you just saw, we just launched that. And now the activists working on that project are working on a second large batch of data. We're working on Tutlo-Saponi Monacan, which is an indigenous language here in North Carolina, where I live in the US. So we're actively working with linguists and historians and Native people from the Halo-Saponi Indian tribe. We're about to import a batch of data for Chamalal, which comes from the Caucasus regions, and many, many more, and some more languages of Nigeria. So it's just to give you an idea. If some of you are interested in some opportunities for the coming years, we also occasionally have interns working on tagging semantic domains and other topics. So that could be for a future conversation for when we open up internships again, probably in 2 years from now. We do welcome people. We train them for short periods of time and we work together with them on Slack. So everything I mentioned today is on our FAQ page, which is on Living Dictionaries website. So we do have a lot of information there. So if you have any questions, I would say you can start there in the future. And then we also have our Contact Us button, which is on our website itself, where people can send us messages. And these are our 2 websites, livingtongues.org and livingdictionaries.app. So I would like to open it up to community conversation for the last 25 minutes that we have. Greg, before I start that part, did you have any thoughts or feedback from what I talked about so far?
Not really. That seemed pretty, comprehensive for a first run for things. So yeah, not really.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So does anyone want to unmute and jump in? I know we have Owen, we have Judy, and we have Darling. Does anyone want to jump into the conversation? Pose any questions?
No, I just want to say I'm working with EAC, which is a dormant language, and there's a small group of descendants. We've been meeting, by Zoom every other weekend. And I think Guillaume is our learned EAC, and he's our teacher, but we're doing fundraising now to keep paying him to teach. And there was a website that has the English name, the EAC name, and then there's a voice, what do you call a media file? But I don't know what format he he recorded it and I could ask him.
Indeed.
Anyway, so that's where I'm at. That's the language that I'm probably interested in working with.
Oh,
I'm not a
that's
linguist.
great.
Yeah, I'm not a linguist, but I work at the university with a scholarship program to create certified language speakers in Tlingit
Oh.
and Tsimshian. That's funded through a grant from our corporation, but that's not the language I'm working on. I'm working on EAC. So I will forward the information to Guillaume. He lives in France.
Oh,
He's the one that's working with us to keep the language going. And I'm just trying to help what ways I can.
oh, that's
So
great.
yeah, that's kind of why I'm interested in that, to see how maybe we could transfer the work he's been doing into this app format.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because we're such a small group, I think we'll probably try and recruit for volunteers or people to help us, because there's only a handful of us trying to keep it going.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. So that's a Na-Dene language of Alaska?
Yeah, I think it's categorized as Proto-Athabascan
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
originally, and there's no fluent speakers left. There's just some of us language descendants left. But,
I see. I see. There's no fluent speakers left. Okay. Are there any recordings of fluent
yeah,
speakers?
yeah. Mike
Yeah,
Krauss has a
definitely.
lot of recordings of the last couple of fluent elders that spoke the language.
Mm.
And so Guillaume tries to incorporate as much as those recordings into our language lessons.
Mm. Oh,
And
it
then,
sounds
So
great. Yeah.
this is a somewhat similar situation. Thank you for sharing that information. To work we did over a number of years with the Siletz Dene tribe here in Oregon. Also, the language is basically down to arguably no fluent native mother tongue speakers remaining, but a new reawakening group of heritage language learners. But there were and are some recordings, and we managed to build a fairly large tool for them using, so it's a somewhat similar situation to what you were just describing. So it's certainly possible.
yeah, we want to create an archive, and Guillaume's working on a dictionary. So, and he did put some of the recordings on a website, the EAC People's website.
Mm-hmm.
So that he builds kind of lessons every other week on different topics, fish or birds or whatever, colors or whatever. So the material's there. It's just, I think it has to be gathered up and put into a format. It's just, I think the problem is just he's one guy.
Yeah. One guy. Oh, that's great. Well, we would love to help you and Guillaume and your team. I think that we have the systems in place that we could, easily teach you how to get everything onto the spreadsheet, and then we would simply import it to the site, and then you can use the site and search it according to the different tags. It sounds like Greg was saying, yeah, a lot like the Siletz Dene project. And some of the others that we have on the website that are built slowly, because like you said, small teams, so there's limited time. But what I encourage people to do is just work in batches, so if Guillaume has a word list or spreadsheet of 500 or 1,000 words and phrases to start with, start with a sizable chunk like that. And then, 6 months later or a year later, do another import, that kind of thing. And that way we can space it out and then make sure that we correct any errors or, address any orthography issues, and then find the images that you want to have, that kind of thing. And then if there's any young people who are also interested in working on it, we can also invite them to a training, and they can learn how to upload, if they're going to do the audio editing themselves and upload little bits of audio from those fluent speaker recordings, then we could train them to do that, even if they're not fluent in EAC, but just want to help out, or we could train other people to find the images that'll go in the Living Dictionary.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for hosting this, and yeah, it gives me ideas. So thank you. I'm just gonna let someone else talk.
Okay, cool. Nice to meet you, Judy. Thank you so much. I'll also pause the recording here.